And with that, I'd like to thank again, especially Governor O'Malley and Mayor Fenty, and believe we will now open it up for questions. If you have questions for Executive Committee members other than the three of us, they're glad to answer them as well. They represent all the states in the watershed. We'll open it up.
Sir.
Yes.
Hedrick Smith, PBS. I have a question for Mr. Johnson. This is the 25th year this body has met. My understanding is during all those 25 years you've been working with EPA. There have been 3 agreements signed by the parties here with targets, with deadlines. All 3 of those have been met. You now have people preparing to sue the EPA for failing to enforce the Clean Water Act. Isn't that a fair charge? What's your response?
Well, I think as Mayor O'Malley pointed out, we all share the frustration that is embodied in the, at least the notice of intent to sue by the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. And we all share in that frustration. We all want the Bay cleaned up sooner rather than later. The reality is we have many challenges. We have made significant progress as a nation in this, and also in this watershed, in our Chesapeake Bay watershed, on point source. That was mentioned. We now have an enormous challenge, a non-point source, whether it's stormwater runoff or agricultural runoff. Those are 2 enormous problems. And when you look at population growth, which over a 10-year period has been about 8%, when you look at the fact that just the surface environment, if you will, parking lots, has increased by 41% over this 10-year period. Those are real challenges that we all support economic growth, but now we've got to sort through how we can achieve economic growth at the same time protecting this national treasure. And that's why the steps that have been outlined are so important for us to work on.
I just follow that up. So you're a scientist.
Yes.
One of the jobs of scientists is to understand what's coming. So this population growth should be no surprise. This non-point source of pollution should be no surprise. I think you owe us an explanation. What went wrong?
Well, I think that we have made progress, and certainly we have all the data to show that. I think that what it does illustrate is that EPA, we have our role to play, but we can't do it alone. The Department of Agriculture has a role, but it can't do it alone. And in fact, the states, working with the federal government, states can't do it alone. It really does take a partnership. These are enormous challenges that, yes, require clearly the needs of the Bay Area far exceed the resources that we've had available. And so we need to work together to prioritize those and make our way through. But recognizing that the growth trend for our Chesapeake Bay area has outstripped, in many cases, our progress. And so it's not an excuse, it's the reality. And that's why we've come together to continue to look at what's a different model, a different way of approaching this, of setting 2-year realistic milestones that we can make ourselves accountable, having somebody independently evaluate so we don't find ourselves in the same position 10 years from now as we are today.
Can we pursue this later with you directly?
Sure.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Whichever. You all talked about an independent national scientific organization to evaluate and hold people accountable, hold you all accountable. Have you chosen this organization? How do you go about doing that?
No, we will be, with Marilyn as lead staff, we will be putting together the, the parameters and the RFP, if you will. We don't want to presuppose that process, but it will be it's an example of something that we know has worked in other places, like the Everglades, I believe, where I believe it was National Academy of Sciences. That's not to say that's who our evaluator will be, but someone like that. And so we're coming up with the parameters, the criteria for the RFP, and that'll be announced. And that's one of the things we're committed to, which is something new that also has come out of today's meeting.
Do you have a timetable for when you would have that ready?
Where's my able staff? What's our timetable? Everybody, this winter? Thank you. This winter. Were you on my staff who said that? Okay. By the end of this winter. Stated with plausibility and boldness. Yes.
Are you all thinking of changing anything about the way that the cleanup approaches non-point sources, which is effectively hoping for voluntary measures and reimbursing those who do take voluntary measures. If you're not going to change that, why would that produce more results now than it has in the past?
I'd be happy to answer.
Sure. The Director, Administrator Johnson wanted to chime in on that.
Yeah, let me say one of the important steps that we are taking as a regulatory agency is that we have committed, and certainly we're working very hard to put in place TMDLs, total maximum daily load, which is a part of our Clean Water Act that tells and in fact directs us to establish caps, the maximum amount of loading of various pollutants, in this case phosphorus, in this case the nutrients, for example. And so we are aggressively pursuing that. Our intent is actually to beat a quarter deadline and to have those in place by the end of the year 2010. There's a very prescribed process, but these absolutely, they establish caps that have consequences. And there are some pretty severe consequences in place, TMDL regulations that will govern these, this nutrient loading, among others.
And if I can follow up on that as well. You know, in our state, I believe Roger Richardson's here, our Secretary of Agriculture. We have, in a very short period of time, at the very least tripled, and I think we're on our way to quadrupling the cover crop program in our state. That's been a very positive move forward. Very recently, the permit was granted to Montgomery County, which is some of the most proactive and aggressive stormwater management regs that any county in America has embraced, and we have further regulations that with regard to stormwater that we will be coming out with shortly in Maryland. I mean, the bottom line is this body known as the Chesapeake Bay has been consuming far too many nitrogen, phosphorus, and sedimentary calories and doing far too little exercise by way of mitigation and restoration. And what we have to do now is get on a much more aggressive treadmill and exercise plan, and all of us together have to figure out ways that we can reduce the calories that enter the body through the bowl of stormwater, agriculture, point source pollution, air pollution, auto emissions, and the like. And there's some of us that the advocacy and the things that Virginia has done, the $20 million that they appropriated towards best management practices in agriculture, all of these things move us there. What we're talking about is accelerating these things. And let me make another plea, and it is this. You know, ultimately, what we do and what we don't do with regard to the health of the Chesapeake Bay depends on the public will that we have as a free people, not on any one administration, not on any one legislature, not on one group of farmers on this side or that side of the body of water. It depends on all of us becoming aware of the individual actions that we take and that we refuse to take in terms of our own personal behavior and also in terms of the policies that we will support through those temporary servants that we call elected officials.
Please.